podcast is provided for informational and educational purposes only and should not be construed as legal advice. Because every situation is unique, you should consult with a qualified legal professional for advice specific to your circumstances. If you need legal guidance, please reach out to an accredited attorney or contact us to schedule a consultation. Hello, and welcome back to the Veteran Benefits Podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Deming. Today, we're going to be talking about total disability based on individual unemployability, or TDIU. This is a very popular topic in a lot of the veteran forums. We get a lot of questions about it. There is also a lot of misinformation circulating and a lot of confusion generally around what it is, who qualifies, what evidence you need to show that you qualify for it, and what benefits you get with it. So in short, total disability based on individual unemployability is a kind of a gap fill when your disability ratings do not add up using the VA math. And we did an episode on VA math. When your disability ratings don't add up to 100% using that VA math to combine the ratings, VA can still pay you at the 100% rating level if your service-connected disabilities prevent you from securing or maintaining, so getting or keeping substantially gainful employment. So let's break that down a little bit because that's a lot of legalese, and I think there's a lot of confusion around what exactly that means. So in a nutshell, like the easiest way to kind of explain it is if your service-connected disabilities, so stuff that's already connected to service, prevents you from getting a job or keeping a job, then you're going to qualify for the 100% rating because VA is going to say, well, yeah, the functional impact of your disabilities prevents you from earning an income. So you're going to qualify for that 100% rating. And it can be total and permanent. VA will sometimes look at it and reevaluate it if you start working again, but otherwise it's typically very often considered total and permanent if you're unable to work because of your disabilities. So when VA is looking at whether you're unable to work because of your disabilities, first of all, they're looking at whether you can get a job. So if you're putting out applications, sometimes people say, well, I want to apply for a job, so I don't want to apply for TDIU because I'm looking for a job right now. And I'll often say, go ahead and apply. If you end up getting a job and you're able to keep it for a while, then you can let VA know and you can withdraw that. But just because you're looking for a job does not mean that you're employable. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that apply for a lot of jobs and they're just not able to get hired. So if you're not able to get a job, then that could be a factor that contributes to or makes you eligible for TDIU. If you're not able to keep a job, so maintaining substantially gainful employment, then that could also be a factor. So sometimes people will say, well, I just got this new job, so I'm going to let VA know right away that I got this job and I'm going to drop my claim for TDIU. A lot of our clients who qualify for TDIU are able to get jobs. They're just not able to keep jobs. And the reasons that they're not able to keep jobs are vary depending on what their disabilities are. We have a lot of clients with PTSD, TBI, cognitive disabilities, impaired judgment, inability to follow directions, inability to get along with coworkers, or for issues with authority, if they're getting in fights at work, if they just get frustrated and walk away because they need a mental break. Those are all issues that can contribute to somebody not being able to sustain or keep employment. We also have physical disabilities that get in the way of people either getting or keeping a job. So it could be headaches. If you're having migraines and you have to call out from work sick, if you have to call out from work sick often enough, a lot of employers won't be able to keep you on payroll because they need someone who's going to be reliable. And if you can't make work, then they'll let you go. So it could be a physical disability. Sometimes we have people with panic attacks or seizures and they're not able to drive. So then we're looking at, are they able to get a job or keep a job where they can work from home and they don't have to commute to the office? So VA is really looking at all of the factors and what disabilities you have and how they combine. So you might have PTSD that causes a certain set of symptoms, certain set of functional impairments where maybe you're not as focused all the time. You can't be around large groups. You have issues with your supervisors or coworkers, so you work independently. And that might kind of limit the scope of work that you're able to do, but it wouldn't, in some people, that wouldn't totally make them unemployable. But then that same veteran might also have knee and ankle conditions and back conditions that prevent them from bending over or lifting heavy equipment. And they might also have tinnitus, ringing in the ears, hearing loss. So they can't operate a call center. They can't answer phone calls because they're not always able to hear what the other person's saying. So when you take that combination of disabilities, and they all sort of impact employment in different ways. When they're combined, then they produce unemployability. So that combined, your set of disabilities stop you from working. You could have a single disability that stops you from working, and there are reasons sometimes you want to, even if you have multiple disabilities, there are some reasons why you might want to say, it's really only my PTSD that's stopping me from working, or it's really only my seizure condition that's stopping me from working. Because if you get one condition rated at 100%, even if that's based on TDIU, and other conditions that are 60% or more, you can get special monthly compensation. So there are some limited avenues where you wouldn't want VA to look at all of your disabilities to determine how they impact your employability. But often you want to have VA look at everything, because when you look at the whole picture, it paints a different picture about how your disabilities impact your ability to work. So if you're not working at all, and if it's at least partially or mostly related to your service-connected disabilities, then you definitely have a claim for. There are some other exceptions that I think people don't understand or get overlooked, is what VA calls marginal employment or protected work environment. So if you're earning below the poverty threshold, so if you're working part-time, or if you kind of have a nominal job and you're making very little money, that would be considered marginal employment. If you're working in an environment where they're basically allowing you extra accommodations, not just American with Disabilities Act accommodations, but they're allowing you extra accommodations because you're a veteran or because you're a family member, but the general public probably wouldn't be able to keep that job. And that can be a protected or sheltered work environment. And even if you're making above the poverty threshold, even if you're making good money, you kind of have this job as a favor for whatever reason, whether it's a family-run business, or they want to hire a certain number of veterans at their job, or maybe your supervisor is a veteran and they're covering down on your duties when you have those migraine attacks that you have to call out sick for. So if you have a sheltered work environment, sometimes we're able to show that you still qualify for unemployability, because you wouldn't be able to get that same kind of job. You wouldn't be able to earn a living on the open economy if your supervisors and employers weren't making these kind of special accommodations for you. So it can be very fact intensive. We do a lot of detailed analysis working with the veteran to look at your employment history, your education history, what jobs you've held in the past, if you're working now, what kind of jobs you're holding now, what the circumstances of your work is now, what your disabilities are, what the limitations are from those disabilities. And a lot of times we will send the claims to a vocational expert. We have a bunch of vocational experts that we work with regularly, and they can look at all of the disabilities that you have, your education level, your work history, and determine whether you would be a good candidate to get a job, even with your limitations, or if your limitations prevent you from working and are causing unemployability for VA purposes. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. There's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of fact specific. Just because you're not working doesn't always mean that you qualify for TDIU. There's a lot of, some people just might not want to work. Say, well, I could work, but I'd rather not, so I'm going to put in a claim for TDIU. If you can work, but you would rather not, that's probably not going to qualify for TDIU, unless the reason why you'd rather not is related to a service-connected mental health disability or something where you know that if you're working, it's going to be detrimental for your health. Having a doctor's note that says that you're unable to work is really helpful, but it's not necessarily always required to win a claim for TDIU. The other piece that kind of factors into it is, in order for VA to look at it and make a determination as to whether or not you qualify for TDIU, they want to see that you either have one condition rated at 60% or more, or that you have a combined rating of 70% or more with one condition at least rated at 40%. So if you don't meet those threshold requirements with your scheduler ratings, VA can look at it on an extra scheduler basis. It just requires extra steps for them to go through, extra hurdles. We end up seeing a lot more appeals if we're looking for extra scheduler. We have seen cases where their only disability was hearing loss, and they were at 40% for hearing loss. But because of that hearing loss, and because of their education and their job history, they weren't able to get or keep any substantially gainful employment. And so we filed a claim for extra scheduler, and VA had to go through the hurdles of sending the claim to the director of compensation, which is just another person at VA. And sometimes we're able to skip that step by going directly to the board if we need to. So we were able to get the veteran TDIU just based on hearing loss. Another common one that
we see is urinary incontinence. It might be rated at 40%, but because of the urinary incontinence, it's really hard to get or keep a job outside the house. And based on the person's education and job experience, that alone might be a reason why they're not able to work. So for TDIU, we're looking at it's a lot easier if you have the threshold ratings of 70% combined or 60% for a single disability. But even without that, we're looking at whether your service-connected disabilities prevent you from working. Sometimes we have veterans that have some service-connected disabilities and some disabilities that they got after service or that just aren't service-connected. And in that case, VA is trying to pick apart. So if you're not working, VA is going to try to pick apart whether it's because of your service-connected disabilities or if your non-service-connected disabilities might be the real reason why you're not able to work. So sometimes people say, well, I'm getting Social Security disability insurance. Does that mean that I qualify for TDIU? And the answer is it depends. It depends on what disabilities are preventing you from getting or keeping substantially gainful employment. So as you can tell, there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of breaking down what securing a job means, what maintaining a job means, what substantially gainful means, what protected work environment means, and then within that, getting into the nuance of how your service-connected disabilities combine to impact your ability to work and keep a job. So we do see people apply on their own and get granted. I definitely recommend pulling together your work histories if you are working or if you were recently working and you have leave chits that explain why you missed work, if you have notes from your doctors, if you have any kind of employment records that show why you were let go, if you can get a letter from a supervisor. Sometimes supervisors say, hey, listen, you can't work here anymore because of your explosive episodes, but we know you're a veteran, we know you're a good person, so I'm happy to write a letter saying why you stopped working. It can be a personal statement from you. It can be a personal statement from a friend or family member that witnessed the issues that you're having. And if you're going down this road and you say, well, I also want to apply for work, I wouldn't say that you need to withdraw your claim for TDI unless you're able to get and keep a job for more than a year and it's substantially gainful and you're pretty sure that there aren't any kind of protected work environment, sheltered work environment scenarios that make this job special. So if you have questions about whether you qualify or whether you continue to qualify, please let us know. If you're receiving TDIU and you want to know whether you're able to apply for jobs, the answer is yes, you're always able to apply for jobs. The worst case scenario is if you get a job and if you keep it for a while, VA is going to reevaluate and propose to sever your entitlement to TDIU. But they're not going to stop you from getting a job. I get that question a lot where people ask whether they're prevented from applying for jobs because they're receiving TDIU. And the answer is no. The TDIU is one thing. If your circumstances change and you start working and it's substantially gainful employment, then you should let VA know. But even before you do that, it's probably a good idea to talk to a VSO or an accredited attorney to make sure that you don't fit into one of those specialized circumstances where you might still qualify for TDIU. And again, the benefits of TDIU are that you're going to get paid at the 100% level. You're going to get all of the other benefits that come along with being a 100% disabled veteran. So your children and spouse would be entitled to the Chapter 35 education benefits. If you have TDIU for 10 years or more and then you pass away, your beneficiaries, your dependents, so your spouse and minor children or disabled adult children, would qualify for survivor benefits. If there's any state benefits that apply to a 100% disabled veteran, you would be eligible for those. So it could be tax write-offs or tax benefits, reductions on hunting and fishing licenses, those kinds of things. You're going to qualify just the same as if someone was rated 100% based on using VA math to combine their different disabilities to get to 100%. So it can be a really helpful way for veterans to get paid at the 100% level if their disabilities are really impacting their ability to work and they can't get to 100% based on the underlying conditions. So we will certainly do more episodes of this and pick it apart and talk to people and give some scenarios so that people can kind of understand how this might apply to them and if it's something that they want to pursue. But I wanted to get this episode out there and just kind of dispel some of the myths and answer some questions. If you guys have any questions, please pop them in the comment section. We will do our best to get you answers within a day or two. And please like and subscribe and hope to see you here again next time. Thanks so much.